aboard was the largest crew ever to ride a U.S. spaceship. The crew of 4 said little to Mission Control as the Columbia rocketed toward an orbit 184 miles above the Earth.
It was a fine ride, I'll tell you.
They did talk about their flight when they received a long-distance call from the White House.
All 4 of us are standing by here, having a good time up here, sir, getting ready for a deployment. Well, now wait till I get my hat and I'll go with you.
The deployment Mission Commander Vance Brand referred to involved the first commercial freight hauled by the shuttle. This afternoon, this spinning satellite was jettisoned from the Columbia's cargo bay on a trip that would take it over 22,000 miles further into space. It was one of 2 communication satellites the shuttle was hired to carry on this flight. The other one will be deployed tomorrow. Morton Dean, CBS News.
Roar of the rockets and the mountains of smoke created a new kind of magic. Suddenly, Columbia the Space Shuttle was transformed into Columbia the Space Truck, hauling into the sky its first commercial payload. But on its 5th trip from the Earth, it didn't look much like a truck, once again flawlessly and gracefully rolling and arching into the sky above Florida. 2 minutes later, some 30 miles high, these remarkable pictures of the solid rocket booster separating, later to be recovered after parachuting into the Atlantic Ocean. First pictures from their orbit 180 miles high confirmed the good health of the 4-man crew and their machine. And mission specialist Joe Allen jumped into zero gravity for the first time with playful enthusiasm.
Hey, these restraints are no sweat. You just take off your boots and your socks and you can use your toes. It's like having 4 hands.
Then a surprise phone call from a space fan in Washington.
We are very proud of you, and you know how much all of us here and down below are rooting for you up there.
Well, thank you very much, sir. It's a beautiful world that we're going over, currently over the Atlantic, and we're very proud to be up here representing America.
And then Columbia went to work. The first of 2 communication satellites on board was set spinning. Then, crossing the equator high above the Pacific Ocean, it was sprung out of the bay and on its way to an orbit 23,000 miles high. It worked. The shuttle successfully delivered its first space freight on time. And the folks down in Mission Control broke into smiles and handshakes, celebrating the beginning of a new age of operations in space. So, after just 8 hours in space, Columbia has completed half of its chores. Tomorrow, the payload bay doors remain open for business to deliver the rest of the cargo, the 2nd satellite. And then on Sunday, something you can't do from most trucks, the spacewalk. Lynn Scher, ABC News at the Johnson Space Center.
The 4 astronauts were on board the Columbia early this morning, ready for the end of a perfect countdown.
You can see the sunrise in a clear sky, and we appreciate you guys ordering good weather for us.
6. We have main engine ignition. 3, 2, 1, and solid motor ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the first operational space shuttle mission with 2 satellites on board, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Roll pitch program.
There were no clouds to obstruct the view. Long-range cameras clearly showed the solid rocket boosters separate from the spaceship.
2 minutes.
Once in orbit, the astronauts opened the payload bay doors and spoke with President Reagan.
It's a beautiful world that we're going over, and we're very proud to be up here representing America.
Well, we're proud of you, and we're going to try down here to keep that world as beautiful as it is to you looking at it from up there.
This afternoon, Dr. William Lenore was in charge of launching the first of 2 communication satellites from the Columbia. Mission Commander Vance Brand watched. First, the satellite, called SBS for Satellite Business Systems, began spinning to stabilize it in space. Then a spring pushed it out of the Columbia's cargo bay.
We got STS off on time.
The satellite and the shuttle drifted apart. That is the Earth to the left of the screen. Later, rockets on the satellite pushed it into an orbit, much farther out into space. On the first day of this mission, the shuttle has proved it can carry out the main job it was designed for, to carry commercial cargo into space. Robert Bazell, NBC News, Cape Canaveral.
And I'm Tom Brokaw in New York. Good night for all of us at NBC News.
In space was this launch of a privately owned communications satellite.
Columbia, Houston, we've got a super shot of the payload coming out.
The astronauts, the flight controllers, everybody in NASA showed their delight with the success of this milestone for the shuttle.
It's a beautiful world that we're going over, and we're very proud to be up here representing America.
Well, we're proud of you, and we're going to try down here to keep that world as beautiful as it is, to you looking at it from up there.
Things will calm down a bit for the astronauts on Saturday. They'll have time to tie up a few loose ends, then they'll get ready for a 3.5-hour spacewalk on Sunday. Dan Molina, NBC News at the...
Astronauts are up and about this morning after 8 sound hours of sleep. The 5th mission of the space shuttle, the first fully operational one, remains virtually problem-free. The key was yesterday's successful launch of a satellite. It proved that the shuttle can do what it was designed to do. NASA's first commercial customer was certainly satisfied. The voice you're about to hear is that of Mike Lyons of Satellite Business Systems.
That's 7,000 pounds. It's really a fairly massive structure, and to see it float as it did out of the bay is just a joy to behold.
A lot of people have criticized the shuttle during its development, saying it wasn't really the best way to launch satellites. There's been a lot of talk about stiff competition from the European Ariane system, but the last time out, the Ariane satellites ended up in the ocean, not in space, and the U.S., with the space shuttle, appears to have taken a huge lead in the race for dollars in outer space. Steve Croft, CBS News at the Johnson Space Center.
This is CBS.
Good morning, Columbia. Houston with you, and we trust you slept well.
Enjoyed your wake-up music there, and Joe's reading the news to us.
The obviously eager and apparently cheerful crew today will launch a satellite owned by a Canadian company. This satellite will be used to transmit television across Canada. The success of yesterday's deployment of a satellite owned by Satellite Business Systems was a milestone for NASA, just about as important as the first shuttle launch. NASA needs the kind of reaction that came from Satellite Business Systems representative Michael Lyons.
But that's 7,000 pounds. It's really a fairly massive structure, and to see it float as it did out of the bay is just a joy to behold.
Today's satellite launch is scheduled for early afternoon. Dan Molina, NBC News.
They began their day with an on-orbit concert. Still basking in the glory of their successful launch of the first satellite, promising they'd do it again today. And while Columbia did barrel rolls over the eastern part of the United States, inside, the man who'd actually pushed the buttons to make it work, Bill Lenore, jokingly claimed his reward, a bag of peanuts. Then they got back to work, concentrating on the second item on their cargo list, the Canadian communications satellite called Anik, Eskimo for brother. With Lenore at the TV monitors this time and shuttle commander Vance Brand flying the orbiter, it was mission specialist Joe Allen's turn to send off the satellite, which so far was looking perfect.
And we don't have a single anomaly to report. It looks beautiful to us here.
And then, as promised, they did it again, sending the 7,000-pound drum of electronics on its way to a parking place 23,000 miles high, this time with appropriate space music. When it was done, Allen repeated what has become the space shuttle's unofficial but proud new motto.
Okay, Houston, this is Columbia. We are 2 for 2. We deliver.
And that delivery marks a turning point in this, the 5th flight of Columbia. With their commercial obligations now fulfilled, the astronauts can look forward to doing something for themselves, taking that walk outside the orbiter and into space on Sunday morning. Lynn Scher, ABC News at the Johnson Space Center.
It's been an important day for the U.S. space program. Today, the shuttle delivered on its promise by delivering some more freight.
3, 2, 1, go.
It fulfilled its second contract to deploy a commercial communications satellite on location.
Look at that. Beautiful, huh? We are 2 for 2. We deliver.
Both the satellite delivered today and the one delivered yesterday were sent toward a higher orbit. While there was time to play today, there was reason to celebrate. The shuttle has now accomplished the major priority of this mission and has proven it can accomplish one of the major tasks for which it was designed. Morton Dean, CBS News, Johnson Space Center, Houston.
It all began with Early Bird, the first sophisticated communications satellite.
Early Bird links us together.
Soon, everyone from presidents to broadcasters were standing in line to get on board. Now, there are 41 in orbit, including the 2 hauled up by the space shuttle. 17 of them are providing service to the United States in ways to delight the most...
The Columbia was flying over the United States and rolling slowly to test some antennas when Joe Allen pointed a camera out the window and turned on some music, composed and taped by his brother-in-law. Then Allen threw some peanuts to his fellow astronaut, Bill Lenore.
Right, that's his reward for the successful deploy yesterday.
Yesterday, Lenore was in charge of the successful deployment of a commercial communication satellite for an American company, Satellite Business Systems. Again today, they used music as sun shields were opened, and another satellite called Anik 3 was successfully launched for the Telesat Corporation of Canada. And Joe Allen said,
"We are 2 for 2. We deliver."
NASA gave the 2 commercial companies bargain rates, around $8 and $9 million, a lot less than the $250 million a shuttle flight costs, calling it a loss leader to generate more business. Roy Neal, NBC News, Houston.
Later, out of range of Columbia's cameras, Telesat's rocket motor fired, and the powerful communications satellite soared off towards a stationary orbit over Canada. It was the highlight of a flawless day in space. The morning wake-up call featured John Philip Sousa, and several hours later, Columbia's crew treated us to a spectacular, unscheduled TV show. As a camera in the payload bay looked on, the astronauts put their ship into a slow roll to test the antenna system. It reminded Commander Vance Brand of flying fancy maneuvers in a jet.
At the end of the maneuver, it seemed like we were headed about 60 degrees up in a climb upside down. And it's a very, very weird feeling. It feels like being in an airplane up here when you do that.
The crew appeared relaxed and happy all day. Bill Lenore indulged in a snack of jalapeno peppers tossed to him off camera by his fellow mission specialist, Joe Allen. The astronauts can't afford to feel good about themselves. The 2 satellite launchings earned $18 million for American taxpayers. And Columbia reached its primary goal of proving itself as a commercial space freighter. Pat Dolan, CNN, at the...
Good morning. This is today. It's a Monday, November the 15th, and down in Houston at Mission Control, it is already a gloomy Monday as you're looking on at a live picture at the Johnson Space Center where a snag has developed in the mission of the Space Shuttle Columbia on this, the 5th day of that mission. And good morning and welcome to a special edition of the Today program on this Monday morning. We're going to be keeping our eye on 2